Hey, what is up guys, this is Thunderstruck115, I hope you're having a good day. I recently wasn't really having a great one because I was sick, but I've been feeling better, so let's make another video. So today, we are going to be responding to a YouTuber by the name of ReviewTechUSA. If you don't know who he is, he's a gaming news channel who, whenever there's any news in the gaming industry, he will make a video talking about it. And honestly, I actually kind of like his channel because he's like the one news channel for gaming that like doesn't bloat his videos. Like, he'll make a video on one topic and stick to that topic. It'll usually be anywhere between like 5 and 10 minutes long. Compare this to another channel like, say, SpawnWave, let's just say, who throws a bunch of unrelated video topics into one video to artificially extend it for that sweet, sweet ad revenue. But Rich of ReviewTechUSA isn't really like that. Though, because he's a gaming news channel, he'll usually jump on a piece of news as quickly as he can. But sometimes this leads to him jumping the gun, which is exactly what happened here. The title of the video we're going to be looking at is The Xbox Series S May Stop Getting Dev Support. And if any of y'all are thinking, holy shit, that's a stupid fucking statement, that's because it is. So, enough beating around the bush, let's get right into this.
The Xbox Series S. I actually secretly love the console now, which isn't a secret because I've been very public about my love for the Xbox Series S. But in the beginning, and well, my fears were justified, I had concerns about its limited compute power. I'm like, this console has actually slightly less compute performance than the PS4 Pro.
Well, we are certainly off to a fantastic start, aren't we? Well, I hate to break it to you, ReviewTechUSA, but no, the PS4 Pro is not more powerful than the Series S. Whoever told you that is a fucking dumbass, or is just completely ignorant when it comes to technology. For example, the PS4 Pro uses the same shitty Jaguar CPU found in the base 2013 PS4, whereas the Series S literally has the exact same CPU that's found inside the Series X, the only difference being that it's clocked slower by 200 MHz, which at the scale that the Series X and S are operating at is not that much. As for the GPU, while technically the PS4 Pro does have 4.2 teraflops compared to the Xbox Series S's 4 teraflops, you're still not getting the full picture because the Xbox Series S still uses the RDNA 2 architecture of the Series X, which is far and away better than the architecture that the PS4 Pro is using. And here's a little fun fact, developers don't actually care about the teraflops count. As we're about to see in this upcoming clip, that's by a YouTuber by the name of Modern Vintage Gamer, who is actually a game dev. Take a look.
So one thing that I want to let you guys in on a secret, especially these console warriors, is the idea of teraflops. No one even knows in game development what a teraflop is. We don't use the measurement of teraflop in any capacity whatsoever. That's not really anything that is said in a day-to-day operation at any game studio. Ultimately, we're trying to make the best possible games with the hardware that we have. And I think ultimately for me, it's really more of a zero-sum game. The PlayStation 5 has great power in some areas, and the Xbox has more power in other areas. But ultimately, it really depends on what developers want to focus their attention on.
And it's now considered a current gen or next gen console. What's going to happen down the line when games push the hardware more? When less games are cross-generation? What's going to happen with the Xbox Series S then? And a lot of people, even people who develop games, got very angry at me for saying that. But guess what? The armchair engineer was right. The Xbox Series S is a bottleneck and is going to hold back the 9th generation unless Microsoft changes its mind and says that games are not required to be developed for both the Series S and Series X.
I just want to remind everyone watching this that the Xbox Series S has more games that can run at 120 FPS than the PS5 does. And this includes some big name titles like Halo Infinite, even the open world campaign by the way, Doom Eternal, Gears of War 5, Call of Duty Warzone, and Psychonauts 2. And the Series S is weaker than the PS5, mind you. Not to mention that the Series S is very similar to the X. Besides the lower GPU and memory, which is mainly because of the fact that it targets 1440p or 1080p instead of the 4K of the Series X, it's pretty much the same console for the most part, because it's almost like these console games are like PC games where you can scale back some graphics and performance sliders to get it to work on a system with a less powerful GPU. Because that's exactly what the Series S does. It just takes games that work on the Series X and plays them on the S, albeit at a lower resolution. So, I'm not buying this claim that the Series S is going to be a bottleneck for this generation.
So video effects artist Ian McClure, who worked on the Xbox Series X and S game I Am Fish at Bossa and also on the Surgeon Simulator series, was sitting down with Jeff and said that, yeah, the Xbox Series S is going to be a big problem for this generation.
So, the person that's making this stupid-ass claim isn't even a developer of the games he's working on. He's a visual effects artist. That's not the same thing as being a developer. And it's not even for like a technically impressive title either. It's for Surgeon Simulator and fucking I Am Fish. A game that I seriously doubt that the Series S is holding back. Number one, because it also released on Xbox One, so like how is the Series S the problem if you're literally developing it for hardware from fucking 2013? But at the same time, the game does not look all that impressive. Like, it honestly doesn't even look as good as a typical game you'd see releasing on Xbox One. In fact, if I'm being honest, with enough optimization, you could probably get it working on an Xbox 360. It looks unimpressive.
And this is what he had to say. Initially, Jeff said most of the games also come out to PC and already have to cover a wide variety of configurations. And Ian responded with, it might sound broken, but the reason you're hearing it a lot right now is because many developers have been sitting in meetings for the past year desperately trying to get the Series S launch requirements dropped. Studios have been through one development cycle where the Series S turned out to be an albatross around the neck of production, and now that games are firmly being developed with new consoles in mind, meaning they're not going to be cross-generation anymore, teams don't want to repeat the process.
Let's see these examples then, because I have not been hearing of developers that were saying that the Xbox Series S was a bottleneck. The only notable examples I can think of is when Techland was bitching about the Series S being underpowered when people asked why there wasn't a 60 FPS mode for it in Dying Light 2, which was complete fucking bullshit because of how unoptimized the game was across the board, because even though the Series S is a capable machine, you still have to optimize your games, which later Techland did, and now Dying Light 2 has a 60 FPS mode on the Series S. And the other example was when Gotham Knights was being released, and someone was bitching about the Series S holding everything back, which again was just another example of shit optimization because it was bad across the board. Not to mention the PS5 and Series X didn't even have a 60 FPS mode. But besides that, there aren't really any other examples of devs bitching about the Series S. And it's already about 2 years into the generation, so if the Series S was going to cause problems, you'd think that a bunch of developers would be saying something by now. But the ones that are the exception, not the rule. And you'd think that the complaints would come from bigger studios like, you know, your Rockstars or your Ubisofts, because they are the ones that usually produce the games that tax the systems the most. And it's also funny you should bring up PCs, because right now, low-spec PCs are under the Series S in terms of power and performance. Yet, I don't see any developers bitching about that, even though it would be a bigger bottleneck than the Series S.
Now we talked about how 4A Games, who brought Metro Exodus to the Series S, said the GPU presents challenges for future games. Axel Knighting of id Software said this back in 2020. I know I've quoted this a bunch of times before, but it's still very pertinent. Also, it always scaled on PC is nonsense. Every AAA game in the past decade or so has their assets made once so they run on a minimum spec. Increasing sample counts a bit here and there for high settings isn't what you could truly have done with more power. Minimum spec matters. So basically what he's saying is they have to make the core of the game work on the weakest set of hardware, and then they just put a prettier veneer on top if your PC can handle it. But the core game, the core gameplay, they have to think about the weakest hardware to make that game work.
And let me ask you this. What gameplay is being held back by the Series S? I'm genuinely curious. Because, ever since, the fucking Xbox 360, we haven't seen this, radical shift in gameplay because of the extra power. Nothing like GTA 3, or Halo Combat Evolved, or Half-Life, or Far Cry, or Super Mario 64. Because the only examples I can think of that are games that use a completely different medium, like, say, VR. However, that's less about the hardware power and more about the input devices that you're using. The Series S is just a typical home console that uses a typical controller, though. In which case, Xbox would have never been in the question anyway, because both consoles just use your standard controller. But ever since, the Xbox 360 generation, the typical home console with a typical controller hasn't really seen, this radical shift in gameplay. It's mainly just taking pre-existing concepts and then just building some new stuff out of that while improving graphics and performance. In which case, all you have to do is just scale back the graphics to work on the Series S. It's not that fucking difficult. Hell, Microsoft even gives developers a unified SDK to expedite development across Series X and S models, and even Xbox One if you want to go for that. But, what are these games that have been held back because of the Series S? I'm genuinely curious.
And then if you have a more powerful PC, they'll slap on some better lighting, they'll slap on some ray tracing, some better tessellation. That's not a true next-gen game, is what Axel is trying to say. And I understand that and get it, and it is a concern. So I'm going to make a prediction. If Microsoft caves to developers' demands because they're afraid that developers may say, okay, we're just not going to bring any games to the Series S or X if you force us to make games for the Series S because we don't want your weak hardware holding us back, Microsoft is going to change the requirement. They're going to say, all right, you don't need to make the games for the Series S anymore.
Well, Rich, I can tell you that Microsoft is never going to drop the requirement for the Series S for the entire generation. Nor do I think there's going to be this mass exodus of developers from the Xbox platform because of the Series S requirement. Why? Simple. Money. Xbox has a huge install base, and not capitalizing that would mean they won't make as much money if they don't port their game over to the system. It's the same reason a lot of developers are still making their games cross-gen with 8th and 9th generation consoles, because not everybody has been able to get their hands on a 9th gen console because of the chip shortages. But they know those people still want to be able to play new games. So by making their games available to the widest install base, by making it available on more platforms, more people can buy it and their games make more money. And when we do reach the point where everybody who plays on console has a 9th gen console, they're going to continue to make games for the Series S in order to capitalize on that higher market cap. As for Microsoft, they make money on every game sold on their platforms, meaning I don't think they're going to drop the Series S requirement, because that would limit a large portion of their audience from buying games. Not to mention, it would probably result in a PR disaster on a similar scale to when they revealed the Xbox One, because they touted the Series S as being an affordable entry to 9th generation gaming for those who maybe don't care about graphics or high resolutions and just want to play current gen games at an affordable price. At most, all I see is maybe a few developers from like smaller studios passing over the Xbox. And the amount that would leave would probably just be a drop in the bucket, but like all your big publishers and the majority of smaller ones anyway are still going to make games for Xbox, even with the Series S requirement.
And guess what at that point? It's just how it is. The Series S is dead. Because what is making the Series S successful right now, and this is why Microsoft is not backing down and succumbing to developers' pressure yet, even though I have a feeling they might, is because that's what is making the Series S sell. It's a value proposition where for $299 you get a AAA gaming console that brings you, okay, the graphics are cut down, frame rates are cut down, resolution's cut down, but you're still getting AAA games on an affordable 9th gen console. If developers are no longer required to make the games scale for both the Series S and X, what do you think is going to happen? None of the games you're going to want, or the AAA games, are no longer going to come to the Series S, and it's going to get a bunch of like Terrarias and games made for kids, and that's it. It's dead. Its value proposition is out the window because you're not getting the same games anymore, so you're better off just spending the money and getting a digital PlayStation 5. I know that's going to piss off a lot of people that I said it, but it's the truth. Get a PS5 digital for $399. It has the same hardware as a PS5 with a disc drive, so it's just as capable, and you don't have to worry about games not coming to your console. Whereas Microsoft with the Series S, you buy a Series S, and if they cave to this and say, okay, the games don't have to be on both the Series S and X, you're always going to have to wonder, oh, this new game is coming out. Is it going to come to the Series S? Oh, this new game's coming out. Oh man, it's not coming to the Series S because they can't get the game to work.
Which is precisely why Microsoft isn't going to drop the requirement for the Series S. Because ultimately, it would only do more harm than good. Like, all this stuff that you're spouting, like, I really don't know why, after all of this, that you still think Microsoft is going to drop the fucking requirement. Because they'd be stupid to do that.
I think Microsoft, they probably already are, is regretting the decision that they didn't do what Sony did and just make a cheaper discless version of the Series X. Because developers now are saying, we can't work with this thing. It's not powerful enough.
Considering the fact that the Xbox Series S has been flying off store shelves and into the hands of consumers, I seriously doubt that Microsoft is regretting the decision to go with the Series S, because it has been successful as hell for them. Especially with that more casual gaming audience who doesn't care about graphics or resolution and just wants to play some current-gen games at an affordable price. And again, it's not the fucking developer in this situation that's bitching about the Series S. It's a fucking VFX artist. That's not a fucking developer, dude.
So to all the people out there who even unfollowed me on social media platforms because I was saying the same thing that actual developers who know how to code are saying, how do my nuts taste? Do they taste delicious? Because I was right. This is Rich of ReviewTechUSA signing out. Have a good one. Did I mention I was right? I was right.
No, Rich, you are not right. The dude isn't a developer who programs the game, he's a VFX artist. But anyways, just like that, his video is over, so I guess the key takeaway here is that the Series S is a very capable machine, but you still have to optimize games to work for it. And also, another key takeaway is don't assume that just because somebody works on a game that they are a game developer. Because the dude that ReviewTechUSA was citing was not a fucking game developer. And it's quite clear he doesn't know anything about technology. And yeah, I know, I'm not a game developer. But, you know, I only have a degree in computer science, so what can you do about that one? But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more. And tell me what you think about ReviewTechUSA talking out of his ass. Anyways, that's it. Peace!